The morning the adoption papers were signed, no one in the courtroom realized they were witnessing the greatest mistake of one woman's life and the greatest miracle of another family's future. A little girl with bright hazel eyes clutched a faded stuffed rabbit as she looked back one last time, hoping someone would stop everything before it was too late. Instead, the judge nodded. The papers were stamped, and a homeless single father walked out, holding her tiny hand while the woman who had given her away believed she had finally solved all her problems. She had no idea that the little girl she had cast aside would one day become the reason an entire town remembered what love truly meant. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that love can be found in the most unexpected places, please like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel, Soulful Tales2, for more emotional stories that stay with your heart long after they end. On a bright spring morning, sunlight poured across the quiet streets of Willow Creek as people hurried to work, without noticing the man sitting on a worn park bench with his daughter, asleep beside him. His name was Rowan Hale, a widowed father who had once worked as a skilled carpenter before a tragic accident at the factory took away both his job and his savings. When medical bills consumed everything he owned, the bank took his home, leaving him with nothing except his daughter and the promise he had whispered to his late wife that he would never abandon their child. Every day Rowan searched for work. Every evening he returned empty-handed, exhausted but determined. Even when hunger gnawed at him, he always made sure his daughter, Mira, had the larger piece of bread. He hid his own pain behind a gentle smile because he believed children deserved hope even when adults had none. Across town lived Vanessa Corwin, a wealthy woman admired for her elegant parties and expensive lifestyle. Years earlier, she had married a successful businessman who had a young daughter named Celeste from his first marriage. Vanessa had never truly accepted the little girl, though she smiled whenever guests visited. Behind closed doors, she treated Celeste like an unwanted reminder of the woman who had come before her. When Celeste's father suddenly passed away after a heart attack, Vanessa inherited everything, including legal responsibility for the child. At first, she tolerated her presence, but as the months passed, resentment grew stronger. She viewed Celeste not as family, but as an obstacle standing between her and the carefree life she wanted. Celeste was only 9 years old, polite beyond her age, with a gentle heart that constantly searched for affection. She helped clean the house without being asked, watered flowers every morning, and kept photographs of her father hidden beneath her pillow. Every night she prayed that Vanessa would someday hug her like a real mother. Instead, she was met with cold silence, impossible expectations, and constant reminders that she did not belong. Vanessa eventually convinced herself that giving Celeste away was an act of practicality rather than cruelty. She searched for legal options until she found a little-known community guardianship program that matched children with approved guardians when relatives refused responsibility. During one outreach event organized by the local shelter, Rowan volunteered despite having almost nothing himself. His kindness toward children caught the attention of social workers who knew his background, his spotless character, and his unwavering devotion to his daughter. After weeks of evaluations, they concluded that although Rowan was poor, he possessed something money could never buy: genuine love. Vanessa signed every document without shedding a single tear. She barely looked at Celeste as the little girl packed a small backpack containing 2 dresses, a notebook filled with drawings, and the stuffed rabbit her late father had given her. She believed she was being thrown away because she had somehow failed to earn love. Yet as Rowan knelt beside her outside the courthouse, he gently carried her backpack and silently offered the warmest smile she had seen since losing her father. For the first time in months, someone looked at her as though she mattered. Life with Rowan was unimaginably difficult, but it was also unexpectedly beautiful. They slept in a family shelter whenever space was available, and sometimes under the roof of an old church that welcomed struggling families during cold nights. Rowan worked every odd job he could find, repairing fences, fixing broken furniture, painting garages, and carrying heavy supplies for construction crews. Every dollar he earned went toward food and saving for a small apartment. There were evenings when dinner consisted only of Vegetable soup shared among 3 people, yet laughter somehow filled the room. Mira treated Celeste like the sister she had always wanted, sharing blankets, books, and dreams without hesitation. The girls invented games from cardboard boxes, turned empty bottles into flower vases, and celebrated birthdays with handmade decorations instead of expensive gifts. Though they owned almost nothing, they finally felt like a family. Weeks became months. Rowan's reputation as an honest carpenter spread quietly throughout Willow Creek. Customers noticed that he never overcharged, always finished his work with care, and refused payment from elderly neighbors who clearly struggled. One retired teacher recommended him to a local builder, who soon offered Rowan steady employment restoring historic homes. It was exhausting work, but it provided dignity and stability. Before long, Rowan saved enough to rent a modest little house with peeling paint and a tiny garden. To the girls, it looked like a castle. Celeste blossomed in ways no one expected. She smiled more often, excelled in school, and discovered a remarkable talent for painting. Her artwork captured ordinary moments filled with extraordinary warmth. A father fixing a broken chair, 2 sisters planting flowers, sunlight falling through old windows. Her teachers admired not only her artistic gift, but also her kindness toward classmates who felt lonely or left behind. Meanwhile, Vanessa's glamorous life slowly unraveled. The friends who surrounded her disappeared when her late husband's investments failed during an economic downturn. Lavish parties stopped. Expensive cars were sold. The enormous mansion became impossible to maintain. For the first time, she experienced isolation. Yet even then, she blamed everyone except herself. Deep inside, however, memories of Celeste occasionally returned, especially when she passed. The empty bedroom that still contained a forgotten music box. 5 years passed. Rowan eventually established a respected woodworking business known for restoring antique furniture. His workshop became one of the busiest small businesses in town. He hired struggling parents, former shelter residents, and young apprentices who needed second chances. People admired him not because he became wealthy, but because he never forgot what it meant to have nothing. Every winter he organized food drives, repaired homes for widows without charge, and donated school supplies to children whose families were struggling. Celeste, now 14, continued to amaze everyone around her. She won regional art competitions and used every prize to help expand Rowan's community outreach programs. She insisted that every painting she sold should help another child feel safe. Reporters began writing about the inspiring family that proved love mattered more than blood or wealth. One afternoon, a local newspaper published a feature titled, "The Carpenter Who Built More Than Homes." The front-page photograph showed Rowan standing proudly beside Mira and Celeste, all smiling beneath the sign of their growing workshop. Vanessa saw the article while waiting in a doctor's office. Her heart nearly stopped. The little girl she had discarded had become confident, radiant, and genuinely happy. More shocking still, the homeless father she had once silently judged had become one of the town's most respected citizens. Curiosity soon turned into regret. Vanessa quietly attended one of Rowan's community events from a distance. She watched Celeste helping younger children paint colorful murals while Rowan served meals with sleeves rolled up and sawdust still clinging to his hands. There was no bitterness in their expressions, only gratitude. Vanessa realized that everything she had chased, status, comfort, admiration, had vanished, while the family she rejected had built a life overflowing with purpose. For several nights she could not sleep. She replayed the courthouse scene over and over again, remembering the frightened child holding the stuffed rabbit. The weight of her decision finally settled upon her heart. She understood that the greatest poverty was never the lack of money. It was the absence of compassion. Months later, Vanessa gathered enough courage to volunteer anonymously at the community center Rowan had opened. She expected rejection if anyone recognized her, but instead she was quietly assigned to sort donated clothes. Day after day, she worked without asking for attention. She slowly began understanding the struggles of families she had once ignored. Eventually, Celeste recognized her. Instead of anger, the young woman simply looked at Vanessa with calm eyes, shaped by years of healing. Time had transformed the frightened little girl into someone whose heart had grown larger than her pain. Vanessa could barely lift her head under the weight of shame. She realized forgiveness was never something anyone deserved. It was a gift. Rowan never encouraged revenge. He believed carrying hatred only built another prison around wounded hearts. His example had taught both girls that strength was measured not by how deeply someone had hurt you, but by how much goodness you continued to share despite the hurt. Slowly, through consistent acts of service rather than empty apologies, Vanessa began rebuilding her own humanity. She could never erase the past, but she could choose not to repeat it. Years later, when Celeste held her first major art exhibition, the largest painting in the gallery stopped every visitor in their tracks. It showed a homeless father walking beneath brilliant morning sunlight while two little girls held his hands. Behind them stood a broken mansion fading into the distance, while ahead stretched an endless road filled with blooming trees. The painting was titled, "The Day Love Found Me." People often assumed the artwork symbolized rescue from poverty, but Celeste explained it differently. The real rescue had been from loneliness. Wealth had given her a beautiful house, but no family. Poverty had given her a family whose love became richer than anything money could ever purchase. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Soulful Tales2 so more people can discover stories that remind us kindness still changes lives. Special request, comment below with the words, "Love always finds a way." If you believe compassion is stronger than wealth and that every child deserves to be loved. As the sun set over Willow Creek, Rowan closed his workshop for the evening while Mira and Celeste laughed together in the garden they had planted years before. Flowers bloomed where despair had once lived. The little stuffed rabbit still rested safely on a shelf inside the house, no longer a symbol of abandonment, but a reminder that even the deepest wounds can lead us toward unexpected blessings. The woman who once believed she had solved her problems by giving away her beautiful stepdaughter spent the rest of her life learning that love cannot be measured by possessions or convenience. Sometimes the greatest mistake one person makes becomes the greatest miracle another person receives. And in the quiet moments of ordinary life, where kindness is chosen again and again, broken hearts discover that home is never the place we are born. Home is the place where someone chooses to love us without conditions, without fear, and without ever letting go.